Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I am here with collector is a weak word to describe Adam Shanker. This place, I'm in his home here in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, we will say. And Adam has an amazing collection of not just albums, but hi-fi and photographs and cameras. And it's just my mind. I'm in shock out here. And Adam is gracious enough to speak to me about some of his favorite blues records and his rock records for a book I'm writing called Small Luxuries Vinyl. And my friend Mark Maloof put me together with Adam. And Adam, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
And revealing all this to folks. Let me ask you, before we talk about your some of the records you pulled out of this incredible, mind-blowing collection, why do you collect records?
I mean, you know, it's like saying to somebody, why do you eat breakfast every morning? I don't know. I got hooked on records at a very early age. My dad brought me home the Beatles' second album in the early 60s, and it pretty much changed my life and started a downward spiral, into, just like spending a lot of money and spending all my time, being obsessed about your recorded music and, searching out things that I didn't know is a passion, and there's still so much I don't know. I don't know more than I know. So it's a lot of fun, especially when you find something new that you didn't know about, and you get turned on to something, and all of a sudden you go down a new rabbit hole, and it's pretty amazing.
How do you collect? Do you have a method or a way you go about finding these records?
I used to go to record stores all the time. I frequented, all the best record stores around, and I tried to keep it to a minimum. I didn't just go to any old record store. I'd figure out really where the best record stores were that had the kind of things that I was interested in. And, I became friendly with the people there, not only the people that ran the stores, but the people who frequented the stores, because I was there a lot. And, you learn a lot from people in record stores. You go into a record store and you can learn a lot of things. So, and I did very well, just finding things that just happen to come in. The thing about going to record stores is, you don't buy something that you're going to buy. You're not going there to buy something specific. Like if I was going to buy this album that's right in front of me, it 99.9% of the time is not going to be on the wall at any given record store. So, you go to a record store and you happen upon things, and so that's kind of nice in a way to basically kind of be surprised when you walk in the door and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I've been looking for this. I forgot, and that's great. And, but then, over time, as I got more and more things, I really didn't need to go to record stores as much. And I still have, 3 record stores that I absolutely love. They're my favorite record stores around here. And I have record stores around the world that I love. So now I'm pretty much buying at auction or, online with dealers around the world that I have been working with for quite a while. They're just very high-end dealers. And, what I find basically is just like even just being on Instagram, if you start posting about records or you start commenting about records or specific records or things, they all find you, the people that are selling stuff.
Right.
It's just one of those platforms that, everybody will find you, and you'll find the exact same people that, that I'm dealing with if you're looking for the kind of things that I'm looking for, So I use Instagram as an asset, for that reason. And I try to friend places that I think are great, and then I learn a lot from them also. As far as the rare records go, when I find something that I want, there is a limit. There was recently Sun Ra's first record, which is insanely rare. I may never see it again. It's that kind of rare. He didn't have a record company when he first came out or through most of his career. And so basically he just, if he was playing a concert, he would just bring maybe 50 records that he handmade himself with his band, and they made their covers themselves.
Right.
And they would bring it to a concert and they'd sell whatever 50 records there. And that was it for that record. And so subsequently he released a lot of records in his life because he didn't have to worry about a record company or anything like that. And he released close to 500 records in his lifetime.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But this first record just came up at auction recently, and it got bid up. It was the kind of auction where I was surprised that anybody would be interested in Sun Ra, so I thought I would do well with it. But then, as it turns out, that there was somebody who saw it who really wanted it, and so I bid up to $6,000 for it, and I lost it by one. We were the only ones bidding, so he got it for like $6,500 or something. And plus, there's always the 30% buyer's premium, so there's 30% on top of that.
Well, let's talk about some of these amazing blues records you have here. I mean, it's just this whole place where you live is just—it's a shock. Every room's another shock. Your basement's a shock. All the photographs on the wall are shocks.
I'm glad you like
all these amazing flyers of the Dead and Bob Dylan, that incredible Beatles thing. That's just—I mean, what do you think that's worth? That should be in a museum.
I don't know. I never saw another one before, but when I see things like that, I jump. Yeah, I didn't pay that much for it either, but that's what happens sometimes at these auctions. There are things that you think that it's the most unbelievable thing in the world, but you might be the only one that thinks that way.
Well, most people would freak if they saw that Beatles flag or whatever next to a Chuck Berry thing. I mean, it's just ceaseless. Well, anyway, let's tell me about these records. So, what makes them valuable?
So we pulled out some records, and Ken asked me to pull out about 20 records that I thought of blues records that I thought were like some of the biggest grail records in the blues, and feel very fortunate as I'm pulling them out. I was like, oh my God, these are like unbelievable. I can't really live without them. I think the blues was one of the most incredible genres in music because it was really just more than just like making music. It was a real lived experience for the people who were doing it. They weren't like making music to make money. I mean, none of them really made money, even after the fact. They were like, people who made records that just like didn't make money. The record companies were taking advantage of these guys. They were 99% black artists, and they were poor, coming from cotton fields or Mississippi or Arkansas or wherever they came from. They were lucky. The really great ones wound up like moving to Chicago or moving to places where they could make money. But even then, they would sign with a company like Chess, and Chess was notorious for just like not paying anybody.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, they just didn't pay, and so they. So some of them were very smart, and they kind of made it happen for themselves. Like Howlin Wolf was a guy who basically, he was illiterate. He was illiterate. He never had an education. Wow. And when you see even his autographs on something, you say like, Howlin Wolf signed that like that, or Sonny Boy Williamson signed that like that, because they didn't know they never had an education to learn how to write, cursive writing or anything. So, and Howlin Wolf was one guy who he wound up going to school. Once he became well known, he wound up going to school for like taking like courses that would teach him how to handle his money.
Didn't he? I read he studied opera at some point.
That I don't know.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, but it doesn't surprise me because he had the most incredible booming voice that anybody's ever heard. Right. I wish I could have seen him play live. I did see his guitarist Hubert Sumlin, who was with him for his entire career. Hubert actually lived here in New Jersey, and I saw him play many times, and Hubert was an incredible guitarist, and if only I could have seen him with Howlin Wolf. But everybody lives in their own time period, and, at least what we have is the records, and so, I don't think that there's one artist in this whole stack that's alive. But, with blues records also, the prices are generally not high compared to the what they are in music history, because let's face it, there's not a lot of people that like blues music.
Or even know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, people like the blues music that people like that are more popular are like white guy blues music, like the Allman Brothers or Led Zeppelin or Stevie Ray Vaughan.
All those guys are great, but
yeah, they're great, but and that's fine because that's what basically ended. All of these guys' careers. I mean, you look at somebody that was incredibly popular like Muddy Waters, and in the mid-'70s, Muddy Waters, he couldn't get a gig.
Really?
Yeah, he had to have Levon Helm helped him a lot.
Wow.
Get some gigs, and he was, Johnny Winter helped him also. Johnny Winter produced a lot of those later Muddy Waters albums that are all his electric blues, which are actually like incredible records. They're just as good, if not better, than his early work. But a record like this, which I bought, maybe I can tell you exactly, in 2019, I bought this record for $2,500. I actually tried to buy it about 10 years before that, which was the last time I saw it, before I found this copy. I tried to buy it for $3,500 and lost that at an auction, and I hadn't seen it again for 10 years. So that's how rare this record is. This record is on the Fire label, which is an incredibly beautiful record. It looks like that.
Where was that label based?
I'm not sure. But it is it's a great record. And this record was actually Robert Quine.
Oh,
He was in like The Dictators or something.
right.
So this was his record. He has an
wow.
autograph down there. And
Cool.
the guy who owns Academy Records, I bought this at Academy Records in New York. Mike Davis is the owner of that. And he told me the story about how he got this record from that estate. And just so it's like a real treasure for me to have this record. It's really one of the treasures of the blues. And a very rare record, just because it was on that label. They didn't have the kind of distribution that other labels had. Like he was with VJ Records and other record companies. A lot of these guys moved around really fast because they figured out that they were getting screwed over all the time. So, they constantly kind of moved around.
I'm sure these guys didn't title their records.
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, Mojo Hand was also a song. So I think that,
what a great cover.
In making the album, same with like the Howling Wolf record that I have right here, Moanin and the Midnight, which is also, a holy grail. My copy isn't even that good. Not as good as I would like it to be, because you just can't find them,
Wow.
So this one I bought in 2006 for $100, but it's probably, let's see, right now, if this was in perfect condition, it would be about a $3,000 record.
Wow.
But I mean, it doesn't matter because you can't find it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the record in good shape?
The record is a VG Plus.
That's good.
Kind of, so it's good. It is the second pressing. It's the blue label. A lot of people with chess labels say that the blue labels and the black labels were basically made at the same time. I'm not entirely sure of that, but basically I consider the black labels to be the first pressings and the blue labels to be the second pressings.
Wow.
But they basically came out at the same time. Like the blue labels would have come out like the same year as the black labels in a lot of cases.
Do you trust the information on Discogs?
You have to do your own research, but I use Discogs a lot. I'm on Discogs, sometimes up to 8 hours a day.
Wow.
It's a valuable resource. Yep, but there's a lot of other resources out there. So if you're really wanting to do research on something, there's a lot of ways to look things up.
What is there
days.
besides PopSpsych?
Well, as far as record values, really not that much as far as like looking up record values. But with most record values, when I've been collecting for a long time, so you kind of know, you have a strong idea. You've seen records around, like I follow things every day. What things are going for, especially things that I like, and so you have a good sense. Records don't always go up in price. It's not like records have to go up in price. There's times when certain genres just go out of favor. Oldies records right now, things like Roy Orbison, or just like, certain things, Dwayne Eddy, or things like that, they're not necessarily records that are going up in value. Some records just don't go up in value, but they're still good records. I have other Lightnin Hopkins records that I like more than this, a lot more than this, and I have other Howlin' Wolf records that I like a lot more than this, and they cost a lot less.
Do you also sell a lot of records?
I sell records at record fairs, and I sell records on my Discogs page. And
can you say what that is?
It's also Mr. Fantasy.
One word?
Mr. Fantasy Records is mr.fantasy with a PH. And I like it. I like doing record fairs because I get to talk to people about music all day. I just did VinylCon in Philly, which I like, and I've been doing that since they started. And I just did the WFMU Record Fair in New York, which I like because they get a lot of people. It's a big crowd. The FMU fair, the record collectors are a little more sophisticated, a little bit more money in the house, and people who really know a lot about music. The Philadelphia fair is a more casual group of people that come generally. So there are some real collectors that go down there. Usually they come in first.
Well, go ahead and continue with this amazing stack.
Okay, so this Howlin' Wolf record, Moanin and the Midnight, it was a very early record. I don't have the date on 1959, it came out, which is very early for blues music. I mean, this was before Muddy Waters set at Newport, and blues artists really, a lot of them didn't get this kind of opportunity. What happened with Howlin' Wolf was he was actually discovered in the middle of nowhere by Ike Turner, and Ike Turner was Ike Turner had been, he had gone to Sun Records and was there with Sam Phillips, and he went there with Jackie Brenson, and they recorded the first, what people consider to be the first rock and roll song in Rocket 88. And the way it turned out was it's considered the first rock and roll song because as they were driving there, their amp broke. Somebody like put their foot through it or something. And so when they got there to the studio at Sun Records, the sound was very kind of distorted. And Sam Phillips, they were like, "Oh, we can't do this." And Sam Phillips was like, "No, it's amazing. This is amazing. This is what we want. It's like raw. It sounds raw." And it was very distorted sounding. And that turned out to be what many consider to be the first rock song ever. And so after that, Sam Phillips put Ike Turner, because even though it was Jackie Brenson who got the credit for that, it was really Ike Turner who was like the whole brains behind it. Jackie Brenson was the singer. And so Sam Phillips put Ike Turner to work as like his kind of like guy to go out and find blues artists and other artists that would be good for Sun Records. And so one of them was Howlin' Wolf. And I mean, talk about a find. Oh, by the way, another one was B.B. King. Ike Turner did a lot of good things in his life. I know he gets a raw deal.
Correct.
I'm actually a fan of his, but I don't agree with what he did to Tina Turner. But
Right.
So this was as a result of that, because that happened around 1954. So Howlin' Wolf was putting out 78s, 45s before that, but he didn't get a long player until this one came along. So it's a very important record in blues and in music history.
I assume a collector, such a serious collector, you're going for first pressings.
That's what I try to do. I try to go for first pressings because my idea, and it's just like a stupid thing, and everybody has their own ideas about what they want to collect and how they want to collect. And I have no problem with people who buy represses. In fact, some of my friends buy represses, and they sound a lot better. If you get a repress of any of these albums, I mean, these albums were pressed, this one's pressed in 1959. So now what they can do with repressing is they use a demix, so they can demix. Not that these were even mixed.
Beatles records.
Yeah, so they can. But it is a new technology. All I'm saying is that there's new technology now. The new mastering technology and engineering can do a lot to make a record sound a lot better. Even a record where the original tapes. But for me, this record is from this time. It's from 1959. The vinyl is from its time. Everything about it is from its time. It has a history that goes way before me. I don't know how many people own this record, but I love the fact that I'm just a holder of it for a certain amount of time, and I think it, for me, that's what I like. I mean, I like the fact that it's from its time.
That's how I feel. And also, you can play this on a system that was sort of from its time. Vinyl, tubes, Corinth. That's what was in the studios that made these.
Yeah.
So it's going to sound more like what they heard, which is what I want to hear.
Yeah. Same here. So that's why I do it. And so as a result, it's not a cheap sport. And a lot of people who laugh at me, who are buying, the later pressings of these things, who are paying $30 for a record or $50 for a record, it's fine. They probably do sound better. CDs sound better also. But it's just not what I want to do. I don't
agree with any of that, but go ahead.
Well, I think CDs sound pretty great, and in a lot of times I think that they sound a lot better than vinyl, but that doesn't mean that I want to put a CD on. I find that when I'm playing records, I'm really in the moment, and I flip the records after 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm really much more engaged in the music, and just the feel of it and everything about it is what I want in listening to music. So I can't really listen to music any other way. When a new album comes out now, and people ask me if I've heard it yet, I said, I'm waiting for the vinyl, because when you do a pre-sale of a new record, you're the last one to get it. It's always in the stores before you pre-sale it. So here's an incredible record, Lightnin, Hopkins and the Blues. This is on the, don't tell me, Herald record label, which is the most incredible record label for this record. It was done a couple times, repressed, I think, on BJ also. I paid $1,600 for this record in, don't tell me, 2021. And it's just, Lightnin and Hopkins made a lot of records. In fact, in 1961, after that Newport Folk Festival set, Jazz Festival set, Lightnin and Hopkins got signed to record companies for the first time. And so that was really when he started just becoming, he was very prolific, and he put out a lot of records. By the way, all of these very early records, like these records, this record, the first Muddy Waters record is called The Best of Muddy Waters. They all came out 1961 era, right after that concert, right around the time of that concert. And they're all basically compilations. So The Best of Muddy Waters is funny to have a best of album for your first album that you put out. But his Best of Muddy Waters was basically all of his 78s, a compilation of all of his 78s, like the best songs that he had made since like 1945. Wow. So he had been working since 1945 until his first album came out in 1959 without the ability to put out a long player. I mean, long players didn't really start till the end of the 40s, but even still, they just weren't releasing them that way. So it's a beautiful record. And then we have Albert King. This was Albert King's first record. Albert King was a different kind of blues guy. In fact, the funny thing was when he started out, he was claiming to everybody that he was B.B. King's brother, but it was false, and he was kind of lying about that. But he just wanted to kind of be somebody, and he really admired B.B. King, and he actually, his last name was not King.
Oh, really?
So he took the name of B.B. King's name also.
What's his last name, really?
I forget, but it happened a lot with blues artists. I mean, these guys, they came from like nowhere. They came from they were
Nothing.
like either, I don't know, picking cotton, they were coming out of jail, they were in a lot of them, it was a dire straits for these guys. But one thing that they could do, they could sit on the front porch and they could play their guitar, they could sing the songs that some of them have been passed down for years and years. And, and so when it came down to like a career or something, they were still living in this kind of I won't say ghetto, but that kind of mentality of where they came from. And lying, stealing, cheating, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, it was every man for himself. In fact, Sonny Boy Williamson, who's a great harmonica player, the greatest harmonica player, well, Little Walter, besides for Little Walter, but Sonny Boy Williamson, you have to differentiate between them because there were two Sonny Boy Williamsons, Sonny Boy Williamson 1 and Sonny Boy Williamson 2. And Sonny Boy Williamson 2 stole Sonny Boy Williamson's 1 identity once he died in order to have his career, because he knew that people would think that he was Sonny Boy Williamson. Wow. And so he made a career out of it, and he did pretty well. In fact, he wound up being embraced by, he was fantastic player in his own right, but he wound up playing with the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds, and he wound up being embraced by all those guys, Eric Clapton.
But he wasn't the original Sonny Boy Williamson.
He wasn't Sonny Boy Williamson. That wasn't his
Amazing.
name. But he took the name so he could just sell records. But these guys, that's what happens sometimes. But Albert King had a different kind of blues than some of the other guys. Albert King, he played a flying V guitar, and it was very bright, very happy. His guitar work was sensational. I mean, he really influenced people like Stevie Ray Vaughan later on, and it was very much the same kind of guitar work, where really intense soloing and very loud, and purposeful, and also it was just bright. It wasn't like a down and out blues, and so he, I think, really appealed a lot to wider audiences, and as a crossover artist. Although ultimately it didn't really help him. His career went through all kinds of ups and down turns. Ultimately, he made his biggest contributions with the Stax label, which was Booker T and the MG's label.
Born Under a Bad Sign, is that one of the
things? And Born Under a Bad Sign, which was written by Booker T and the MGs, but that became his biggest hit and what he's known for. And that album also should probably be in this pile, but it probably it probably falls into the category of maybe a $500 record right now, and I think these stop kind of at that level. But this beautiful album, incredibly hard to find. It's on the King label, which is kind of funny that Albert King is on the King label. Yeah, just a beautiful record.
Yeah.
And of course, the king of the King label was James Brown, and other people like Little Willie John, but not many blues guys were on the King label. So I think early on, the folks at King probably weren't pegging him as necessarily like a blues guy. They were thinking of him as maybe somebody who could be more R&B, kind of a little on the soul side, but that's what happened. Then Lightnin Hopkins' very first album.
Strums the Blues.
Yeah, this would be a very hard album to find. I know it was for me. I bought it from one of the best record dealers in this country. His name is Jeff Gold. He has a site called Record Mecca, and he gets the best stuff. And but he also charges accordingly. So this album in 2020 I paid $800 for. Now, where would that be? Now it's probably a $1,500 record. But like I said earlier, these records should cost a lot more than they actually do. I mean, I think that all of these at these kind of prices are a deal. And
why do you think that?
Just because of their history. I mean, and their it's a scarcity, and the other thing about scarcity is condition, and price has a lot to do with condition and condition of these records. I mean, you have to realize two things that happen with blues records. One is the history of stereo systems. So back in 1960, 65, stereo systems weren't that great. So when people were playing their records, they weren't necessarily thinking, oh, I'm collecting this record. They were just playing the record, and also the equipment wasn't so great. They were putting a nickel on top of the tone arm just to keep it down, and it wasn't like it is now when people are finding this record and being like, oh my God, this was just a record that people abused. And so also being his first record that came out in 1958, wow. There wasn't a big market for it. The concert at Newport hadn't happened yet, and it was he was lucky to have a record come out before that. But it's on this beautiful record label, the Score record label.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Yep. And you can see my copy is pretty sweet. That's what you get when you buy from like the best people. And Jeff is definitely one of the best dealers.
Where is he located?
He's located in California, but he's easy to find. Record Mecca. I've been a big fan. I've bought stuff from him and I've sold stuff to him, and he's just also a great resource if you ever need to have information about anything.
Amazing.
Arthur Big Boy Crudup. Here's another example of a record that I wish I had a better copy of. I have seen it in better condition, and there's a lot of records to buy in this world, so I can't just buy everything all the time. And when I saw the one that came up recently, maybe a year ago, I don't know, I think it wound up going for somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000, something like that. And it was a great copy. There's nothing I can do about it. This copy is definitely very playable. It's a VG Plus copy. The covers has a little wear on it. But Arthur Big Boy Crudup was a great songwriter. He was kind of very casual about it. He wrote, what's the Elvis Presley song he wrote?
Hound Dog?
No. He wrote That's All Right.
Oh, wow.
His song was That's All Right, but Elvis Presley covered it 2 years later. I think that came out in like 1954, and Elvis Presley covered it around 1956, something like that. But and Elvis Presley added Mama, so he added That's All Right, Mama, and it became a huge hit. And so the thing is, a lot of blues guys didn't write their own songs. So Arthur Crudup, he wrote a lot of songs. He's a very good songwriter. A lot of his songs were covered eventually by a lot of guys like Steve Miller and all kinds of other artists. So he made money as a songwriter, because the record company could take advantage of you in a lot of ways, but they can't take advantage of you on the songwriting credit. Wow. You know, because that went through the union and the songwriters, whatever.
Right, it was all
so,
legit.
But just like the Mojo hand, this is on the Fire label, which is, you know, an incredible label. Whenever you see any record on this label, I suggest buying it. You know, it was kind of short-lived, and I don't really know the exact history of it, but I like their records. They did a lot of blues.
What percentage of your collection was bought before the internet?
A good amount.
Huh.
I mean, I was buying records my whole life, but of course, the older I got, kind of the more successful I got with my work, and you know, I had money. I was able to, you know, and now I'm pretty much retired, so my hobby is kind of like buying records. You know,
prefer this era with the internet than the pre-era for buying records?
I definitely prefer this era because, I mean, you know, beforehand, you had to just go to your local record store. My local record store when I was growing up as a kid was Caldor's. You know, I lived in the middle of nowhere. I was in a rural area in Putnam County, and I have to drive like 10 or 15 miles to get to Caldor's. And, you know, they weren't selling vintage records. I was just buying the records that came out.
Was your dad originally, was he a New Yorker?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And your mom too?
Yep.
So wonder where your dad went shopping. Colony?
Later on, my dad my dad traveled a lot around the world, and so he would buy things all over the place, and mostly books, but records also, and he would have things shipped back. Also, he was in some sort of the Recording Arts Society. He was a member somehow, and so he would get a lot of records just shipped to him from the Recording Arts Society. It had to do with like people who were voting on the Grammys and stuff like that. But more like he was more interested in like the jazz and the classical. So here's another incredible record, which you don't see around much. It's Lightnin Slim's Rooster Blues. It's really kind of a cornerstone of a great collection. It's a holy grail. This came out in 1960. I paid $350 for it. Doesn't say when, but it's been a long time. I've had this record for probably 15 years, something like that. And this record, I'm sorry, I like to show labels.
No, it's great. I'm going to take photos of those.
To me, record labels are what it's all about. The Excello record label.
Beautiful.
The Excello record label, yeah, this is an incredible copy. And I was so fortunate to have bought it then. You really don't see it. I mean, you know, you could wait. You know, you might see a beat-up copy once every year or so around. But, you know, to see this is great. And the person who really made his mark on Excello was Slim Harpo. Slim Harpo put out 3 amazing records, and he was an incredible songwriter. And to me, when I think of Excello records, I think of Slim Harpo. And we're going to get to 2 of his records in a few minutes. This record, Rooster Blues, yeah, I put down that this record is worth about $1,000 now if you were to find it in great condition. But it could easily go for $3,000 because it just depends on who's bidding. That goes with all of these records. When you have records that are kind of this rare, that don't come up that often, it's just a matter of who wants it bad enough and what the situation is. So moving on here, we have another Howlin' Wolf record right here. This record came out in 1966, so it's much later than any of these other records, but it's still very rare. Unfortunately, my copy is electronically altered for stereo, which is not something I really want. So my copy isn't exactly like the Grail record, but it is right from that time. It's the same label. On the mid-60s chess labels look like that, and you know, it's just a beautiful record and really hard to find right now. And so this record would be about $1,000. You know, it's a rocking chair record. It's really called a self-titled record, even though it wasn't the first thing that he released. Usually the first record that you release would be a self-titled record. This was like, I don't know, maybe its 3rd or 4th record. Really good. Here's a great one, Sonny Boy Williamson. Talking about Sonny Boy, we talked about it before, Down and Out Blues. So this kind of captured a moment. The cover is something that people, you know, gravitate towards because it's, you know,
Down and Out.
Yep. And this came out in 1959, and it's a Holy Grail record. And I paid $100 for it a long time ago. doesn't say when, but I've probably had this record for 20 years, something like that. I have a few copies of this record. I love it. This is a chess label.
So that's an original chess label.
Again, this is a blue label. This came out on a black label. I've actually had the black labels before. I've never had a black label in the kind of condition that I want to play it. So every time I would put it on, I would just be like, I love the fact that it's a black label, but ultimately I play records, you know. So I've sold my black labels over the years. I buy it regularly. A lot of these things I buy regularly. For instance, this album right here. If anytime I ever see this record, it's mine.
Right.
You know, this is Slim Harpo. I just told you the Excello label.
Why do you buy the same record over and over? I do that sometimes too.
I can't help myself with this record.
Yeah.
I just can't help myself. Slim Harpo is about like the greatest thing ever for me, you know, and he was embraced by the Rolling Stones. He did a song, Slim wrote a song called Got Love If You Want It, and the Rolling Stones, their first live album was called Got Live If You Want It.
Wow.
And they like gave him a little plug there, and that was in the mid-'60s. And then in the 70s on Exile on Main Street, they covered Shake Your Hips.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's when everybody got hip, pardon the pun, to Slim Harpo.
Was he still alive then?
I think so.
So he made some money.
He died early. A lot of these guys died of heart attacks.
Of course.
Yeah, I think he died in 1968, like around then. I'm not positive of that. But yeah, I found one recently. I went to a record store. I was out in Colorado, and I don't even know why I walked into this record store. It was a small record store. I don't go to record stores. But we're walking down the street. I'm like, oh, let me just go check out and see what's on the wall. Just flip through a couple things. And sure enough, this was on the wall. And the guy I don't think he knew how to sell it, or he didn't know what it was. And he was asking like $200 for it or something. I was like, oh, just pass that right over the counter to me. You know, that's mine. Every song he ever did is an amazing song. And he wrote songs. His wife was actually a co-songwriter with him. She never got credit.
Of course.
Yeah. And she outlived him and wound up kind of running his estate afterwards. But he put out his 3 great albums with Excello were this, Baby Scratch My Back, Rainin' in My Heart, which I'm going to get to in a while, and Tip On In. And Tip On In was on the Excello label, but it was on the second Excello label, which was a different design than this design. By the way, I always like keeping my records out of the sleeves, so I keep the records in a nice inner like this, and I keep it right in the back. Number one, it's good, easy access, so I can get to my records fast, because let's face it, time is money, and when I want to listen to records, I want to listen to them fast. And it also saves the cover from abuse. So I'm doing 2 things there. Probably
so
everybody watching this already knows stuff like that.